Okay, we're going to call this meeting to order. Excuse me, it's 5:05 p.m. This is our regular board meeting. Can we have a roll call, please?
Piles,
Present.
Beard,
Here.
Terrell,
Here.
Thunderbird,
Here.
Kennard,
Present.
Wester, present, Martell.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The next item is presented on the agenda, and for those that were wondering why we're starting at 5 o'clock, we have a CTE presentation today by Dr. Harlan. Before we get into that, and board members, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the consent agenda needs to take place before we get into the CTE presentation. Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to make a motion to amend the agenda to move item 4 till after the consent agenda. Excuse me. So that would be item 4 would now be item 5, and item 5 would be item 4. So moved by myself. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Kennard.
Can we have a roll call, please?
Piles,
Yes.
Thunderbird,
Yes.
Terrell,
Yes.
Beard,
Yes.
Kennard,
Yes.
Wester, yes, Martell.
Yes. Motion amended. So for the consent agenda, all matters listed on the consent agenda are considered to be routine in nature by the Board of Education and will be acted upon by one motion. There will be no separate discussion on these items. If any member of the board or any citizen requests discussion of an item, that item will be removed from the consent agenda and will become the first item of business under the report of the superintendent. Item A is to approve the minutes of the board of the special meetings of July 20th, July 28th, July 29th, July 30th, August 5th, and the regular meeting of July 27th. Item B, excuse me. Item B is to approve the bills for payment as submitted in the amount of $720,069.71. And item C, to approve personnel actions as submitted by Human Resources. 1, employment of Director of Adult Education. 2, resignation of, excuse me, accounts payable. Now, I have received notice that there is a request to remove the Director of Adult Education to discuss under the report of the superintendent. Is there any additional?
I have a question about if the minutes were amended. If not, I need to pull that too. I made Ms. Wester aware. It was
Yes, they were amended.
okay. Thank you.
Is there any additional? If not, I'm going to make a motion to approve the consent agenda with the exception of the Adult Education Director.
Second. Support.
Roll call, please.
Piles,
Yes.
Beard,
Yes.
Thunderbird,
Yes.
Kennard,
Yes.
Terrell,
Yes.
Wester, yes, Martell.
Yes. Consent agenda is approved. At this point in time, I'm going to turn the floor over to Dr. Harlan. We have a CTE presentation. We thank you, sir, for joining us today. The floor is yours.
I'm sorry, Mr. President, to interrupt you, but are we going to wait on the Director of Adult Education? Are we going to do that after we do the CTE piece, or?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
going to be up under the report of the superintendent.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. So yes, again, I'm going to turn the floor over to Dr. Harlan to discuss our CTE program, moving into this into this next semester. And how are you today, sir?
I'm doing fine. Yourself? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. We hear you loud and clear. The floor is yours.
Okay.
Before we begin, Mr. Harlan, or Dr. Harlan, excuse me, before we begin, I did just wanted to, just clarify, excuse me, that, we're in open session, not closed session, of course, so we can discuss roles and responsibilities, but we're not here to discuss anybody's, any positions of employment, excuse me.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
That's one of the things
Okay.
that
Yeah, thank you, sir. The floor is yours.
yes, was a concern. Okay. Welcome everybody this afternoon. Even though I have a large presentation, you only have 1 hour, but I'll tell you this here. Most of the board members have received a packet. The report is 82 pages, and there's 200 pages of documentation. I would like to make one addition that you may see some in the report. There was some grammatical or some things that were shifted, and Office Depot does apologize because of their upload. Somehow their system shifted some things. So I just want to make that public for the board members. Not only did you receive my report, but also too an executive summary. And I'll start with the executive summary, and I can hit on some of the other pieces, and then if there's any questions. And the first thing we have to deal with is, what was my contract? Because people have this misconception that what I was supposed to do, and I find it very interesting because some individuals were in 2 meetings before even agreed to do the consultant agreement. So let's deal with that one there. We already know my 3 stages. We already know what I was supposed to do. And I was supposed to not only evaluate the CTE program, but look at teachers, administration, finance, budgeting, HR, federal and state regulations. And I was supposed to report only to the board and the former interim superintendent. It was a courtesy of communicating with the acting principal if there was some issues. So in this directive, and as we came back, and even if our three-year analysis that I had presented, it was to do a comprehensive. And the comprehensive is to actually take a look at the whole system and find out what happened, because you're spending more money out of your general fund than you're actually receiving in Perkins or 61A money. So what happened to these programs? Well, when I start to take a look at these things as part of his directive, I started to first, what was everybody's role? How did these programs get to the point where they were non-functioning? What I mean by non-functioning is because when you spend over $2 million, now that was 3 years. Now we got another year. I don't know the numbers today, how much you spent. But the number of completers who are completing the program, that's all MDE and the feds want to know. How many students completed the program? And as you look in your packet, you find out that from 2015 to 2020, there's only been 568 students who have completed a CTE program. And that's well over $2 million. Even this year alone, as you look at it, you had 415 enrollees, but you only had 63 completers. That's a lot of money that's been spent out for these programs, and you get very, very little in completers. And I'll address that later on. So my approach into taking a look at this project was not only to be unbiased, but to report the facts and who I was actually reporting to. When I did my first presentation back in November, I showed you the number of money you spend in the salaries, benefits, programs, et cetera, et cetera. It was way out of balance. But I also too ran up against a couple of barriers. Finding out, get down to the bottom, to see what was actually going on. So I have bullet points, and I'll say because the public does not know about the bullet points. And I'll just do summary of the bullet points, Mr. President, because as we said before, there is some actions, and I don't want to put that in a public board meeting. The one question that came up was the issue, the role of the special project coordinator, the department head, the acting principal, the assistant principal, the finance, HR, and also to the community as a whole, to find out what is actually going on and where was the public discourse. What I find out, and as I started to make some inquiries, of course, you see on the second page of my executive summary, I was instructed of an action by an individual, and that severed the relationship between myself and the teachers. I brought that up with the the former interim superintendent. Number one, you can't do that because that's against in the MDE rules. But I'm going to respect the territory. And as a result of that, it actually allowed me to see a lot of other things that were going on. I emailed the administration, as you see in your packet, over 20 tasks, 20 items that was due, and what I saw that need to be addressed. Not only they were not addressed, but they also too did not receive any type of punishment, or I say corrective actions. You have to look at it as a whole, because people fail to realize they think MDE is, Wayne Reese is the end. Wayne Reese is a pass-through. MDE come from Lansing, and MDE is broken up into other departments. Well, when they send mandates down, we have to complete them. If you don't complete them, then it will turn around and you will have what they call a finding. And then the finding could cost you money that you have to pay back. So I started to see some problems that probably were more of a decade old. I started seeing some questionable purchases. I see some non-compliance to federal and state regulations. Program standards were not followed, and there was limited oversight of the special project coordinator. And I'll get to that one in a second. Now, I do have a couple of staff members, I should say teachers, who actually follow the rules. But there were some questions of why the rest were not following the rules. And this also too, besides outside of my contract, I was asked to do other duties outside of my contract without compensation. But I explained that if you have somebody else there, it was their duty to do that. So we'll get to that one at a later time. So the primary, one of the biggest problems that we had, it was the performance. If you look at it, it's called a CPI. CPI is the data that is collected by the state from each of the districts, and it puts it into a state database to show you the performance. What we basically saw, and I saw, there's been a continuous problem, is that you had reading attainment is only running at 36.51% in performance, while the state target was 55.80. That was just in 2015-16. But then it started to increase the next year. It was 40.24, then it's 32.33. So your reading is way below the state standards. Your math is below the state standards. Only one that has actually changed was the technical skills, and that was 2017-18. It actually increased. So all the other ones you have met the state standards. So my question came up to then of the administration and also to the special project coordinator is, why wasn't there an improvement plan to show not only that the reading and the math attainment can be increased, but how is it working in the district to improve this? Because don't forget, once that information comes out, it becomes public. But for 5 years to be still in the same position, it kind of baffled me why wasn't this addressed or some type of plan. The next issue that was brought up was, what was the role of the special project coordinator? Well, after we did some investigating, find out that there was never a position of special project coordinator. It was just a title that was made, no job description, no administrative function, but as individual, as you see in my executive summary, that was paid not only salary, benefits, and mileage, but also was paid a stipend for people accounting. The concern that I saw, and this is part of my observation, is what we call the special relationship. Sometimes, regardless that you have a special relationship, it should not interfere with your professional duties. And I have made that very, very, very important here. And I'll get to that in a second also too. So in order to not only be professional, you won't be biased. But when there is financial mismanagement, when there's not following state and federal rules on equipment, inventory, believe me, ladies and gentlemen, there is an audit coming. And everybody knew after a year that they're visiting school districts and they don't even give you any notice, even Wayne Reese, all the rest of them. If you are not, your paperwork, and you're not in compliance, you're going to get a finding and you're going to have to pay money back. There's no payment plan. They're going to take your money off top. I know some smaller districts who got hit with a big bill because they found some irregularities. Well, once I took a look at this and said, well, what is really the role of the special coordinator? Because if the special coordinator is only interacting with a very few people, then what about the rest of the people and also to the district? You see those findings in my report. I will not put that in public. The second thing that I found out in my interaction is the role of the department head. And I know this is going to be uncomfortable for some people, but I have to say this. I saw it, I reviewed it. The department head was basically not involved in a lot of actions that happened from 2015 to 20. And I kept raising that question, why isn't the department head at the table when it comes to these issues? Well, I was told one thing, but I've been in higher ed for almost 30 years. I've been doing this for a very long time. And I didn't buy that story because there were certain things that were done that the department head could have not known. She couldn't have, well, pardon me, I didn't want to identify the individual. She didn't know. So I made it a point to say, you got to bring her to the table and she's got to be involved. Because when you look at your CBA, that department head has responsibilities, administrative, et cetera, et cetera. Of course, they're paid a stipend. But to eliminate that individual in all of this transaction was very, very mind-boggling. Now, was it a personal issue? I'll let you decide what that may be, but you saw my evidence when it came to that. So no matter what, yes.
Dr. Harlan, if I may interject, I just want to stay within our legal parameters. So
Yes,
we
sir.
can just address the issues and then address the potential resolutions. I just don't want to toe any thin lines as far as our
right.
legal parameters.
Okay, right, and that's one thing that we were concerned about. So what I also too found out was there was some questionable spending where some items were purchased, and it will raise some serious questions about who approved this and why it was approved. I saw not only addressing the issue of the recruitment and low enrollment. Low enrollment has been going on for a very long time. While these classes were continuing, I have no idea. When you had about 6-7 programs that could have been consolidated, or actually it could have been eliminated at all, but you all gonna have to make that decision. And I put those numbers inside your packet so you can see where your numbers are. Former employees, I put that in my report, talk about the impact of the former employees. And not only it costs when we come to revenue and earn revenue, but also to what has happened. For example, we do have one position that was, and it's not my decision, but it came from MDE, that a person did not meet the qualification, but that's an HR issue because I do not certify anyone, or the special project coordinator does not certify anyone. So you saw that in your packet. It's unfortunate, but we was faced with, you're gonna have to, I had to remove all students and courses out of the annual report. And they sent me a letter, and I informed the individuals, even in the central office. I informed the administration that this action was happening in mid-May. So that was going on there. So that position, which is health occupation, must be filled. Even though I looked on there and it says health information instructor, that is incorrect. I don't know how that happened. I mean, I gave the information that needs to be given. The other question that came up was district authorization, was called an ACA. And if the individual has 4,000 hours, they can be certified or given that. Once you get that agreement, because that's given by HR, once you give an agreement, you must continue with post-secondary to earn your standard or professional CTE. There came up a question that a couple of individuals, and to be skirting that line, that you already see that in your packet, and action must be taken. There was a SIP review. SIP review is that every program has to go through program standards, which means we did have a program that failed 6 out of 10 of standards. By my account, that it was at least about 6 or 7 times that the administration individual was contacted to correct it. It has not. The administration, the central administration, was fully aware of this, and I also too told them that we will have a finding. So in that finding, you saw the Wayne Risa gave a letter, and that's it on that particular program. The other program in the SIP review did real well, and I commended that individual for completing everything that needs to. That is public record. The additional problems I saw that there was no evidence of work-based learning. Work-based learning has changed where I think there's 5 to 6 different segments, and you have to fall in those categories. So that has to be addressed, because that is a violation of not only state but federal, and they're looking for it, and it was brought up. The other is that, as I said, the second one is a member of the faculty have not maximized the advantage of professional development workshops. Now, what I mean there is that there is about, I know 3 individuals that actually do professional development, but it needs to be more, not only just going to Wayne Risa or going to your industry. You need to get out a little bit more and bring that information and that technology back into the school. There's others that you saw in the evidence and you saw in writing that did not participate in this. This causes a serious problem. And why is it causing a serious problem? It's because this is mandated by MDE and also to state and federal. This is a compliance issue. Sponsored programs. I did have 1, 2, 3 programs that were sponsored, what we call the CTSO. There was one program did not do any CTSO. So that was part of the, hello? Oh, something happened here. That was part of the findings in that program. Workshops. Besides the, who I observed, at least 2 individuals, I always saw them at the workshops. The others I did not see. And you have that also too in your packet. Workload. Workload is a little bit different because when it comes to the financial support of the district is given the finances, but when it comes to the workload, there is a big disparity. And what I see in that is that you got low enrollment courses, but also too, they're not performing the way they should perform. One program, give an example, one program had 100 people, but only had 4 completers. A whole year, you had 4 completers. So I had to research this problem to get back and find out what was going on. One thing that I brought to administration and to the department head is that is the scheduling problem. You can't have these issues with scheduling all the time. And a student could be enrolled in 2 to 3 different programs. Now, what happens when you come to CETUS 5? Because it's only 2 CETUS 5. I became the CETUS 5 in January. Business finance was already there. Of course, the other individual was special project coordinator was a level 5. You can't get in, there's only 2. When I started taking a look at that, I started seeing that there was some serious scheduling problems. And it was killing the enrollment, but the system's gonna pick a person up. So when I start seeing 700 some people enrolled in CT, it was not actually 700. They were being counted twice. So in the system this year, it weeds out, because once you pick a program, that's it. You may get enrolled, but you will not get any financial money on that one there. So it came to 415 this year. There were 6 courses, which is also to bring a big concern. There were 6 courses that were non-CTE. Now let me explain this to you. Once we sign the assurance, that means that a CTE teacher will teach 100% CTE. No other, because that money is being reimbursed for salary, benefits, and et cetera, et cetera. We had 229 students enrolled in non-CTE courses that were taught by CTE teachers. That's 1 foot in general and 1 foot in Perkins. You're going to end up paying that money back. So I don't know what that final number going to be. I've been working with budget and finance, but the biggest thing I kept asking was, how long has this been going on? So when that audit's going to bring that up. Also to, you see in there, I started talking about the compliance when talking about MDE, federal and state, non-tagging and mislabeling and failure to categorize equipment in the programs. You must have a program, an overall list of all equipment for at least 5 years, because you have to hold it. Now, after 5 years, you can actually request to dispose of it, sell it. But what I found out was that there was equipment that had not actually been inventoried. And as I put in there, your federal and your state regulation of mandate, straight out of the manual, that's automatic. That has to be, the inventory management system must properly track all equipment. Now, when I talk about other equipment, I start seeing that we purchase more computers than we have students in the program. We start purchasing Other items that I can't understand, I never got an answer. How could you do this, and how could this be approved? So that is in your evidence package. I think most of that stuff there is in your summary. Now, just if I can touch on a few little things here, is we have to take a look at the program and part of functioning. It has to be consolidated, but 415 students for all of the programs, I don't know how you can justify taxpayers' dollars of continuing it. And it actually has been going on for a while. Now, that is your decision. There was an issue about stipends. You know, there was no documentation of why stipends were paid, and that needs to be in their file in part of the audit. I did ask a question about the evaluations. Each evaluation should be in the personnel file of each teacher. It has not been done. When the audit comes, they're going to look for that. All the transcripts, et cetera, must be there. These are federal mandates. It's not what I asked. Now, Mr. President, if you will allow me, I would just, because most of the stuff you already have, you can read it. My recommendations. And my recommendations, for one, is that each program has an advisory board. And in an advisory board, I said it would probably be best if you had a overall advisory board. And this is members of our partners that have an interest in the CTE program. You still have your program advisory, but then you have an overall board. And that's why I said that that would be pretty good, that they can be staggered in every 3 years. Because not only has business and industry, corporate industries, but also to community relationships, certification, and grants. Certification is the biggest thing in the Perkins 5. Every program must have a certification. There's only one program, one and a half, that basically have a certification. The other ones, that certification are not approved. So this year, I think there's $4,700 I was given a memo that's left. So what I will do is the 2 national and authorized by MDE, I will purchase that, and those programs could use those certifications so we can meet that deadline. Constituents, I talk about the program standards and instructions, and how the advisory board is actually the driver and business and industry of the program. Well, I start to see some things that were not, it could be some work to move it forward. Because when you come to recruitment, I didn't see not a brochure. I didn't see anything going outside the school. So it became a big concern. So one question was asked for me of a faculty member, and I explained to them, that is your public relations department. It is not on the individual school. I tried to address that. I even sent things to the PR. It says, hey, that I paid out of my pocket, to say, you can use this as a recruitment. Now, if you're going to mail them out, knock on doors, or et cetera, but you have to promote the programs. Ensuring the programs are certified and established. If you look, I said I put in the recommendation, a plan of improvement. And each one of these programs should have a plan of improvement. Because if you don't have it, the part of the accountability becomes a big problem. Because these are taxpayers' dollars. The individual, I should say, former individual that was head of special ed or special population, I had a conversation back in the fall that CTE must have its own individual to deal with special population. You can't have another teacher because it's very strict. It says the person must be certified. I never got the information of what would it cost to have an individual assigned just to CTE. That must be addressed. The other thing is that we have 2 positions that are what we consider aides. That is actually going to be moved out, will be phased out. It just does not justify the means here. Civil rights compliance, some of it is okay, but we have to support a lot of the other things to address this. There should be more. Now, I don't know what happened when it comes to the professional development, but CTE needs to have its own professional development. Somehow they lump in district professional development and say that this is okay. No, it's not. Well, at one point it is, but the other one is not. They need to have their own separate. So a budget needs to be developed just for CTE professional development. And so they can have their workshops. Support the community in public relations, and also to dealing with the issue of instruction, to be innovative, and also to address the shortcomings that each one of these programs have. I know in a short period of time, and you have over 282 pages of documents. I hope I touch on the things that are most important, but you can cipher from that. But I'll give you a couple of numbers when it comes to completers, because that's what you get your 61A money. From 2015 to 2016, you only had 135. 2016 to 2017, you had 105. 2017 to 18, you had 160. 2018 to 2019, 123. 2019 to 2020, you only had 63. So that's 586 completers from 2015 to 2020. So is there any other questions? I'm looking at the clock because I don't want to go into your other meetings.
Sorry, Dr. Harlan, what was the number of completers?
For which year? The total?
Yes, over that span.
Okay, for 2015 to 2020, it was 586 out of over 2,200. It's probably about 2,500 at this moment in time, students that have actually went through your CTE program.
Okay, and I have a question. I don't know if you are
Ms.
able
Piles,
to.
Ms.
Yes.
Piles, if I may. Dr. Harlan,
Yes.
first of all, I want to thank you for your report. What I hear is that we have some compliance issues,
Yes.
and it is my and I do expect that they will be addressed in the very near future as we complete this onboarding process with our future leadership. Any questions for for Dr. Harlan by the board members? Please make sure that they are tailored so again they don't cross any legal parameters.
I have a question, Mr. President.
Yes, ma'am.
I just want to know, because I don't have knowledge of this. You mentioned questionable purchases and inventory processes,
Yes.
things that were not inventoried. At some point, could you just get us, I don't know how the inventory processing works and how, who keeps a tab on that, but hearing you say that is concerning. So if you could send to the board the questionable purchases and also what our process is for inventorying, and then any suggestions that you have so that we can correct that, please.
Okay, they in your packet in the back it says sample computer and other CTE purchases within 5 years. That was a sample.
Okay.
That's a copy of that there. Now I do have, and of course NDE, and I sent it out. It's a grid sheet. I think Mr. Cooper had one that mirrored it, and that is what you're actually supposed to have.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
Mr. President, this is Ms. Kennard. May I
Yes, ma'am.
address Mr. Hall? Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to piggyback on the question pertaining to inventory equipment. I'm familiar with inventory equipment systems. And so my question to you is there a system in place that is not being utilized, or are you saying there's no system in place? And if there's a system in place, how archived is it? Is it something that's manual or something that's more automated, or you were not able to determine that?
Well, what I found out that, how to say this, each program was supposed to have all equipment listed for over, actually it could be 10 years, but you're supposed to keep at least 5 years. They didn't have that. The current one, we kind of started with the current ones, but that probably gonna be in your budget and finance, because you have to have the overall. What's important is the cost and the date of service. Why is that? Because you cannot purchase additional equipment or upgrade for 5 years. So what I did was that since the equipment, a couple pieces of equipment that was in Culinary Arts, I was allowed to purchase new equipment because it was more than 5 years old. But if you don't have that, you can't keep purchasing it. But yes, it is something that did not exist. It was kind of sporadic, and it needs to definitely get a track on that and get all that equipment. Then I saw other equipment that went in other rooms. I know those was not inventoried, and that is an issue also too, because you have to say where the location of all the equipment.
Okay, thank you. And my next question is that you mentioned something about scheduling problems, and we're not going to get into any employment focus or whatever, but my question is scheduling, is that the entire CTE, or are you talking about a particular program that's having schedule problems, and who's responsible for scheduling?
The board meeting.
Yeah.
The administrator, I mean,
Dr. Harlan was speaking at the board meeting, and he's just such an idiot. Salerno's texting me back and forth.
hello?
If you are not speaking, please mute your microphone. Mr. Cooper, if you can mute them, please.
So, Mr. Board President, this is the type of behavior I'm talking about. Now, the man called me an idiot, but the last time I checked, I think I have a national presence and also 2 credentials that can support this. What is happening over here is I sat in the middle, and I had one part of me that the administration was pulling, and the other one with the special interest group. I had to remain neutral, and also to remain neutral. Not only that I personally been attacked, which I would address later, as a person, as a human being, but everybody knows that this problem was going on. Now, the question that comes up to, when they come for an audit, you cannot have any excuses. And I saw equipment. So if this is the behavior and this is the same thing that I wrote in my report of my barriers, the exact same thing that this individual just said. That's what I had to deal with from day one. But I held my head up high, and I completed the job that the board wanted me to do, because the board wanted the truth.
Thank you for your report, Dr. Harlan. Are there any additional questions for Dr. Harlan?
Well, I did. It was pertaining to the scheduling, but that's okay. I will just ask that at a later date. And my next question was with the no work-based learning evidence. Is that something that has never been demonstrated, or has been, or are you saying that with all the programs, there was no work-based learning evidence with the CTE program?
Well, what has happened is that the work-based learning has changed over the years. Before, you can give an instruction, and once you give the instruction, that can be qualified as work-based learning. Now they're saying if I bring someone on the outside and they give the instruction that the students must participate, that will qualify. So the old way does not qualify, and it was like 5 areas, and each of them have the folders. You must demonstrate why working, et cetera, et cetera. Matter of fact, one thing that I saw was not a work-based coordinator. And I put that in the Perkins grant for next year to have a work-based learning coordinator. Because that's additional. That's somebody who may have to go out to the site, make sure the paperwork is together, and that will be a CTE teacher. Because they changed the rules now. It can't be no one else but a CTE teacher. So someone would actually pick that up. I put that in the report. So yes, you had very small, but it's not actually meeting the satisfaction of MDE.
Dr. Howland, thank you very much for providing us with this information and staying diligently in with providing your research and doing your due diligence and bringing this to us. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any additional questions for by board members, please? Dr. Harlan.
Mr. President.
Yes, ma'am. The floor is yours, Ms. Grubb.
Okay. Dr. Harlan, you indicated that we are out of compliance in a lot of different areas. In your professional opinion, would there be an opportunity to make corrections as far as time is concerned? Exactly what would it take in order to bring the program up to standards?
Change the mindset, change the commitment. You know, what I've actually saw, and Mr. Real, I would have to say, and this is my moment in time, I saw a district turn around and say, well, we for the kids. But I saw so much infighting from the community, internally, and I, for a person who's been in this for 30-some years, even the gentleman with that comment, that's what I saw. So how is that the best interest for the kids? I know what someone want me to say. They want me to say, we do not have enough CTE students and we need to lay off some CTE teachers. But my firm commitment starting out as a professor of criminal justice, I believe they can turn this around because that could be your flagship. I've actually reached out to adult ed to merge and come together with CTE to create a workforce development project to expand the CTE, not only during the day, but even in the evening, and partner with the city, the county, and the state and everyone else. But yes, I truly believe in my heart, it can change, it can turn around. But if you ask me today, looking at the numbers, looking at the money, the financial commitment, and what has been going on for years, I know what some people want me to say, but I'm gonna let you make that determination because that's for you board members to make a decision. I can only give you the facts.
Well, I personally would like to thank you for your time and due diligence and professionalism and providing an opportunity for this district to turn that program around and actually pull together the loose ends. Thank you, Dr. Harlan.
Thank you. Welcome.
Are there any additional questions for Dr. Harlan? We're at 5:53 right now. Not, Dr. Harlan, I want to thank you for your report. Thank you for bringing these issues to our attention. And we thank you for joining us today for your presentation.
Yes, Mr. President, and not only that, the board members have read this report and that the new superintendent will come in and address these issues. And there's a lot of issues that are in their report and they're factual. And I will address my issues later on.
Thank you, sir. At this point in time, we're going to move to the next portion of the agenda, which is public comment for agenda items only. Now, this is limited to agenda items only as stated, and the only agenda items we have today are the COVID planning, special education services, and the Safe Start Readiness Program. as well as we have several, that was under the board, report of the superintendent. Under the business operations, we have the audit engagement letter, finance committee meeting update, bid updates. Under the human resources, we have security bid update. Under report of the super update on superintendent contract. And from the consent agenda, we have the, director of adult education. I'm going to open the floor to the public. If anybody from the public would like to address any of those issues, keep in mind that there will be a portion at the end of the agenda for general comment. The floor is open. If you'd like to address the board, please unmute yourself and introduce yourself. Thank you.
Mr. President, this is Mike Hanson. I would like to speak.
Yes, Mr. Hanson. Is this regarding one of the aforementioned agenda items?
I would like to address our plan going forward for the school year.
Oh, yes, sir. Please, the floor is yours.
Okay. My name is Mike Hanson. I'm the REA Vice President, and I'll be starting my 22nd year here at the high school. Before I get started, I want to thank Nicole Crockett for her job being thrown into this, trying to develop a workable plan. I don't always agree with you, but I do admire your drive to get things done and your ability to get things done. I would also like to welcome Dr. Emerson to Romulus Community Schools. One of the things that stuck out with me during your interview was your word of team. I tend to repeat things over and over again, and team is something I've been asking to belong to. Our members have been asking to belong to, and thank you. I look forward to your magic moving us forward. The three things I want to bring out, and I hope you guys really talk about this tonight. Dr. Emerson brought up the idea of starting online. I really think that should be considered. Much of our members also agree with that. I think a slow start and allowing people into the building at a slow pace, I think it's going to be a lot better than us all jumping in feet first and trying to figure out if we can sink or swim. Second thing I would like you guys to hear you guys talk about is ingenuity. It's not that I disagree with us going to that. But during a task force meeting, the high school staff did talk about using ingenuity and kind of using it as a backup, and we would make our own lessons and put that on to Google Classroom and try to teach how we normally teach. The next day we got the email that we were just going to use ingenuity and then we could supplement. I'm not going to object to that, but what I do object to is I don't think we've been given a good reason why. And it's not just the teachers that need to know why, but parents and students as well should know why we're using ingenuity. Was it something that we studied and it looked better than the other platforms? Or is it out of convenience because we're using it? I don't know the why. And when members ask me about the why, I can't answer that question. The last item I want to go back to, and again, I'm a broken record. Last week I had 5 medical appointments, and before I was seen by the doctor, I was asked questions, I was given hand sanitizer, and I had my temperature taken. Why did they do that? They wanted to make sure I didn't bring any infection in with me. Okay. If I was already showing symptoms of infection, they would have kept me out. I think it's a very good idea to do temperature checks during the school year. And I know there's some doubt to that, but for one, it's going to give reassurance to not only the staff, but also to parents and students that we at Romulus Community Schools, we're doing our very best to keep our children safe. The second part of that would be it will allow us to pull people that may be passing infection along. We may be able to stop that. And whether it's COVID or something else, we can get that out of there. Let's see if I got everything here. I really appreciate your time. I really hope that we spend some time discussing this plan and we put the best plan forward for our kids. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Hanson. And your concerns are so noted. We appreciate your input, as well as the REA. Do we have any additional commentary from the public at this point? If not, we're going to move forward with the next portion of the agenda, which is the report of the superintendent. At this point in time, I'm going to turn the floor over to interim superintendent, Ms. Nicole Crockett.
Mr. President, I'm sorry, Ms. Crockett. Before we get started, do we want to do the contract first versus wait until the end? I think
Are you referring to the director of adult education?
Yes.
Yes, that'll be the first item of business before we get into anything else. Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry for interrupting.
No, thank you for the reminder. Please.
Okay, I was going to say with that, we would like to recommend hire of our new adult ed and RBLC director. If someone would read the motion for that hire.
Mr. President, so I don't believe that we actually had a topic sheet for that because it was in the consent agenda, but I can offer. So I move that the Board of Education hire Renee Gowan, Director of Adult Education and RVLC, effective August 10th, 2020, and the contract ends on June 30th, 2021.
Support.
This is Kennard. I second.
Motion has been made. Motion is on the floor. It's been seconded. Is there discussion, please?
So, well, we just had like one minor revision. The contract, it says his and it should be she or her.
Correct, and those changes have been made and resent to Ms. Godwin, so that
Awesome.
has been corrected.
Okay. And then I didn't have any additional questions. Thank you.
I would just ask, I know we received the contract, but it's not signed.
Ms. Piles, the one in the Google Docs is signed.
Oh, okay.
I looked at it. It's signed.
Okay, thank you.
So, Mr. President, I believe the motion has been made. Do you?
Yes, ma'am. Is there any additional discussion? Okay, if there's no additional discussion, the motion is on the floor. It's been supported. Can we have a roll call, please? Well, before we have a roll call, just let me make one brief statement. This is a substantive position. I'm glad we are filling these positions, but with new leadership coming on board, I really don't want to. I would like him to have a clean slate or opportunity to build. So. I'll reiterate that I don't want to push forward with filling all these positions without him having the ability to be part of these decisions. So that's my position on that. It's nothing personal against the applicant or otherwise. With that being stated, we can have a roll call.
Piles,
Yes.
Beard,
Yes.
Terrell,
Yes.
Thunderbird,
Yes.
Kennard.
I concur with the statement that the president just made pertaining to filling the positions at this time, but I'm going to go ahead and vote yes.
Thank you. Wester is yes with ditto on comment made by Mr. Martell. Ms. Martell?
My vote is no, but again, it's nothing against the applicant. I just would like us to move slowly, moving forward to make sure that we fill these positions with the right individual for our district. With that being stated, I believe the motion passes.
Yes.
Was that 6-1?
Yes, sir.
And I'd like to welcome Ms. McGowan Ms. Gowan to the district as Renee Gowan is the Director of Adult Education, RVLC. With that being stated, I'll turn the floor back over to Interim Superintendent, Ms. Nicole Crockett.
Thank you. And thank you, Renee, for all that you have done up until now with the adult ed program, for growing that program, and for all of the support that you continue to offer the district, including your volunteering on our communications task forces and everything else that you do behind the scenes. I just wanted to personally say thank you. With that, the next item up is COVID planning. This was just approval to use CARES Act funding for the planning that needs to happen or that needs to continue to happen as a result of COVID-19. Many of our staff members, administrators, et cetera, are on vacation and have been asked to come back early in order to make sure that professional development and plans and planning and getting things ready and preparing for students is completed, so that we have a very successful beginning of the school year. The only way that works is with people and the teams that have been working. I think I shared all of those different teams and departments that have been working on this for the last 2 months. I just want to say thank you for all of the work that you put in. But we understand that, again, people coming off of their vacations and doing work outside of their workday, that it's going to have to be, they're going to have to be compensated to some degree. In addition to that, we also have our compliance monitor. In the absence of our special education director, is performing tasks that need to be done, that must be done in order for school to begin. We need to make sure that our special education students are covered, and there's work outside of her job responsibilities that she is taking on in order to support our students. So this is just a blanket approval to make sure that all of the planning happens that needs to happen in order for us to move forward for beginning the school year. So if someone can read the motion for that.
I'll read the motion, Mrs. Crockett, because I have a question afterwards. But
Okay.
be it resolved that the Board of Education accept proposed additional pay and hours due to COVID-19, as well as pay to cover special ed director additional duties performed by compliance monitor position. Should I read the whole sheet, topic sheet?
No, but I would like to hear, can I hear your question? If there is, can we do that?
I'll support.
Okay, the rationale is these are necessary expenses for the planning and reopening of Ramsey Community Schools in the fall due to COVID and Director of Special Ed administrative leaves. The budget implications would be from the CARES Fund and a portion from General Fund.
Correct.
And my question is, how will this be tracked to the additional pay? Is this going to be done through like pay requests, PRs, or is that
Yes.
how this will be done?
Yes.
And who will be monitoring it to make sure that the costs are going where they need to be going?
We have forms for that, and so the forms, it's a Google sheet, if you will, and so that everyone who is doing planning over the summer is putting in their days and hours, time, and it's tracked in one location. But then after that happens, then the PARs have to be submitted. Yes.
Ms. Crockett, I have a question.
Yeah.
So is there like a list of like duties or responsibilities that that this work is kind of based on for those stipends?
So right now it's planning, especially on behalf of the leaders. It is hours spent planning, and usually that is together. So committee time, the hours in committees, planning and researching and planning for professional development and providing professional development. So all of those tasks are being done by committee. We've got a social emotional learning committee that is working alongside our health, our teen health center and other professionals to make sure that when we come back, whichever way we come back, students are their needs are met more than just academic. For example. If that answers the question, or I can.
It does. I just had one additional question, and is there like, is this capped? Is there a cap to this?
So the number of days, I believe is 10 on that separate document. There's a COVID-19 planning document. I want to say it's capped at 10 days. If for whatever reason we go over that, or go under that, it will be amended in the planning, in the financial planning.
Ms. Crockett, this is Ms. Kennard.
Yes, ma'am.
So in the event that there need to be adjustments to any of the financial pertains to this, whether it's over and above the budget amount, is the finance director involved in this process, or is this at the level of the individuals who are responsible for this?
Yes, that information. I'm sorry. That information came from our director of business and finance. So she is managing the funds and making those amendments.
Okay, so that's what I want. That's what I think Danielle was getting at. And so for myself, I wanted to make sure that we had some type of input coming from our director of finance in this process.
Absolutely.
And that she's aware of those triggers and knowing how to address that. Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely.
Are there any additional questions for Ms. Crockett regarding this issue?
I did have one last. Let me just make sure it's not on the topic. Was a grand total on the topic sheet? I'm sorry.
It was not on the topic sheet. The totals for each item were on that COVID-19 planning.
So
document.
what we're looking at, so it would be 10,000 plus 4850 plus 10, well, almost 11,000. So all of those are added together. So then it would be a grand total.
Correct.
Okay.
And that is not including the special education piece, just because we don't know, that's just a daily rate, if you will, and it just depends on how long it takes for us to know what we need to do moving forward with that position.
So right now we're looking at approximately 20, almost like close to $30,000, but then special education will be added into that.
Correct. That is not coming from COVID funds. So that is coming from general funds. Special education piece. Well, the special education piece is not is not COVID related. It's
Okay.
it's vacancy, if you want to call it, related.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes, I understand.
Okay.
So for the
Thank you.
COVID, I'm sorry. So for COVID, we're looking at 25,824.59 total.
Correct. Correct. Let me see if I have that on my 25,824.59.
Yep.
If all of that is completed, correct. So that is the allowance.
That's the max.
Correct.
If there are no further questions, there's a motion on the floor. It's been supported. Can we have a roll call, please?
Piles,
Yes.
Beard,
Yes.
Thunderbird,
Yes.
Terrell,
Yes.
Kennard,
Yes.
Wester, yes, Martell,
Yes. Motion passes.
Mr. President, who supported that? I'm sorry.
Ms. Piles did.
Okay, thank you.
Before we move into the next agenda item, which is the MI Safe Start Readiness Program, I just want to address something very briefly. Earlier in the middle of Dr. Harlan's presentation, there were some comments made. I'm not sure, but I'll go back and listen later as to what exactly they were. Just want to reiterate to this board, we expect professionalism here. We're not always going to agree on everything, but inappropriate comments, etc. This is will not be tolerated. So I expect complete professionalism from all of us. With that being stated, I'm going to turn it back over to Ms. Crocker for the readiness plan.
Thank you. And so again, so on Friday, we presented the plan that had been worked on, or that has been worked on. Honestly, since since school ended, we've been receiving guidance, and we've been building on that guidance from the state in this Michigan Safe Start Readiness Plan. And so with that, on Friday, we presented options, and we heard also that there were other concerns besides the plan as presented. So with that, we are going to offer or request that the board approve one of three plans. These plans are interchangeable, if you will, when it comes to the whole document. So the whole document that was discussed in detail and at length on Friday deals a lot with the cleaning, the sanitizing, the screening requirements that we are following per the Wayne County Health Department, the social distancing, wearing masks, all of those things will be followed. And so the questions or the concerns were around how school was going to start. And so with that, we offered in-person plans, and we offered virtual plans as options for our families. But again, we heard from several members of the community, as well as from board members, that they would potentially like to see some alternatives. And so with that, we are presenting an A, a B, and a C option, and we're asking the board to make a final decision on how we are going to be moving forward. So with that, I'm going to present those options now. Too many tabs open. Give me 1 second. Okay. I can't see you. Can you see that on the screen?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you. So I'm going to start backwards with option C, and I'm going to work my way up to option A. So starting backwards, as presented at Friday's board meeting, we had 2 online only options, Romulus Virtual Academy and RVLC, and we had 2 in-person options, which were the 5-day and the hybrid. And with the hybrid is simply reduced days in school for those who wanted to, for whatever reason, reduce exposure, if you will. But the student still follows a 5-day schedule. So if the student is in, if the class is going on 5 days and the student is there every day except Tuesday and Thursday, then that student still follows whatever is going on in class on Tuesday and Thursday. So the hybrid is simply just reduced days in school. Nothing else changes with that. And so that was presented at Friday's board meeting. As a matter of fact, let me go back to that. So I'm going to stop sharing this, and I'm going to find that that presentation that was shown on Friday, if you will. Give me 1 second. I do this to myself with all of these tabs. Okay, and that was I'm just going to show that again. If you'll be patient with me. Okay, so this was what was shared and discussed on Friday. The offering the virtual options as well as the in-person options. And during that discussion on Friday, again, it was brought out that there may be some other desirable options. And so with that, again, I'm going to go back. I know I'm going back and forth. So I'm going to go back to options A, B, and C that we're going to request that the board make a final decision on. Am I sharing yet? No. All right. Almost there. Okay. So option A, again, because we are listening. If Mr. Hansen is still here, we are listening, and it takes our collaboration to get all of this done. And I want to once again say thank you to our team who has tirelessly and on their vacation days. We have administrators who are on their vacations in the car, on the phone, in meetings, because they understand how important it is. REA, tech departments, all directors, everyone is involved. Grade level leaders, department heads. I'm leaving people out, but everyone has been involved in putting this plan together. And if you have been, it's not over. First of all, it's not over, but thank you for the time and the commitment and the dedication that you have displayed for our kids. So the options that we're presenting today are option A, which was brought up as an option, virtual only. We would still have the 2 virtual options, which would be Romulus Virtual Academy, which is teacher directed. And then we would have RVLC, which is student paced for grades 6 through 12. The recommendation was that this happened for the first quarter. The first quarter runs from September 8th through, I believe, October 30th. And we would revisit based and reassess as we near that time to determine whether in-person learning would happen. Option B is virtual only with learning centers. Some people have called them learning pods. And the purpose of the learning centers is because based on the data that was presented on Friday, we understand that approximately half of our parents are looking for their students to return to school. And so this option would be a situation where even though everyone is learning online, learning centers would be set up at select buildings. And we would have to redeploy available support staff in order to do this. So we would have available support staff in the buildings while the teachers are teaching, and students would be set up basically by grade level. And with the youngest students having the first priority, the concern was around students not having to be left at home, or parents not having, for parents who don't have options to support students who are left at home, especially young students. And then option C was presented already at Friday's board meeting. I am sure that there are questions, so I am going to try to field those as best I can at this time.
Mrs. Crockett, so you talk, well, here you go. Mr. Hansen asked a specific question about Edgenuity. So could you kind of talk a little bit about that? But then one of the things that I remember you saying on Friday was one of the reasons why we are kind of supplementing Edgenuity is because if we pick some of the options that may have in-person components and we go back into phase 1 through 3 from an executive order from the governor, then that means that we want to make sure that we're not in a tailspin with the curriculum and what's being taught, so that the pacing can continue with our students. So could you talk a little bit about that also, please, again,
Absolutely.
for our new listeners?
Absolutely, and that is around consistency, and I will let say Dr. Cooper. I will let Mr. Cooper jump in as well. But let me start with the consistency piece. As you mentioned, having everyone on the same page is extremely important at this point, especially when everyone is virtual. It's one thing when you can run next door and talk to your neighbor who is, teaching a similar subject and talk about, how did you do this and how did you do that? When we have people in the building and we have people potentially not in the building, we have to make sure that based on our standards. And so one of the things that we have to understand is that we're not letting the Edgenuity program dictate what we're teaching. We have standards that must be that must be achieved at each grade level. And we start with the standards first, and we start with the assessments that we have for those standards, and we build the Edgenuity program around that. So that's the first thing that people need to know. And so with that, one of the things that the Edgenuity program offers us is the ability to have interactivity besides the consistency. So again, talking about the consistency, if we have people who are virtual in fourth grade and just only on the computer, and we have people in the classroom in fourth grade, they should be doing the same things. So that using that program and making sure that our grade levels are aligned that way ensures that we're all having the same thing, that all of our students are getting what they need for that grade level. If we go in and out of phases, if we're in phase 4 and on Monday and on Thursday, we end up at home, everything can continue. It's not like it was in the spring where, it's a shock and it's, what do we do now? We have been practicing both in the classroom and online so that it's seamless. Nothing changes. We just keep doing it from wherever it is that we are. 2 reasons for Edgenuity. Reason number 1 for Edgenuity is because we were required. One of the requirements for choosing a program is that it had to be board approved. We didn't have a way around that. So the board approved program for Romulus Community Schools is Edgenuity. That we've got 4 weeks left for school to start. And so using the program that has already been board approved, if we attempted to, at this time, research and try to vet out another program, our teachers need to be getting training and support immediately. It would take another couple weeks to vet out a different program and bring it before the board. So we already have a board approved program. And then lastly, when we talk about using a program, so what tends to happen sometimes, and this is not with everyone, what tends to happen sometimes is that learning curve from moving from me writing on the board, if you will, to going to a virtual program. We have a tendency, it's very time intensive to make documents and assignments interactive. So if I, as a teacher, give students an activity that's on a screen because I'm not with them. So when I'm with them, I can give them a piece of paper, and I can give them little dots, and they can put the dots on the paper in the different places with manipulatives, and therefore they can see what it is that they're doing. They can't do that on a worksheet, if you will. So what the program allows is interactivity. So since I have this up on my screen, instead of having dots, I can click and it turns a color, and I can click and it turns a color, and I can click and it turns a color. So I know that I'm doing something right. And I'm getting feedback as a student. And so what the teacher is doing is the teacher is watching, is allowing the students to do those, to manipulate that program, and then bringing everyone together and saying, okay, I gave you time for that. And so now let's talk about, how everyone did. And I can speak to my students that are on my screen and say, I see that all of you guys got this answer. Let's talk about your answer. I see that all of you guys got this answer. Let's talk about your answer. And so now I'm going to put you in a group online, and I'm going to put you in a group, and I'm going to visit your groups, and you guys have 10 minutes to come back, and then we're going to discuss this. And so it has to be interactive. It's not a situation where we put kids in front of the computer and they do all the work, supposedly do all the work and take a test, and then the teacher just grades it and moves on. It cannot be that way. So we need for the program to offer that manipulability. I just made that up. Thank you. So that the teacher can support the learning. And it's not to say, and we'll start off that way. Something else that I had to mention, and I apologize. We had a meeting with grade level leaders and department heads, et cetera. And thank you, et cetera. And I don't know that they were able to get back to their teams yet, because we had this conversation. Thank you, manipulability. I'm not going to live that down, am I? Okay, we'll just put it up. Fine. Okay, sorry. So we discussed this, and unfortunately, another concern that we have as a district right now, because we're waiting for word on finance, and every district is. We don't know right now, there's the assumption that everyone is going to kind of be in their comfort zone, and everyone will be able to teach what they thought that they were going to teach. We would love for that to happen. But in the event that there is any, I almost made up another word, that there is any movement, we'll just say, between teachers or between subjects. I'm used to always teaching this subject, but things have changed and assignments have changed. And so now I find myself teaching something different. I still know how to use the program. And so I'm not thrown off as a teacher, starting from scratch on new curriculum that I'm trying to make up myself. The curriculum and the program is already there. The standards have already been established. And so I can just jump in. If something happens and we need to have one of our dedicated substitutes taking over for some period of time, if someone gets sick, they know how to use the program. So those students don't get left behind. So at this point, it really does come down to making sure that everyone is lockstep. And once we've got that down and we've got that secure, then, that's when maneuverability is a word. I can use that. That's when the ability to change things up. We expect for teachers to still have to do videos, who want to do videos. We have teachers who we want to interact again with kids as much as possible. And so we're really using this program as a skeleton, if you will, so that they can insert themselves.
Question.
Yes.
So thank you again for all of the time and the meetings that you have put into just developing these options and presenting them to us. I appreciate that. As we look at these options, and I'm one of 7, but a lot of districts have initially considered the hybrid and done away with it for cost reasons, for just exposed risk, for a lot of reasons. And so I think whatever we do, we need to do it well. And I would rather have fewer options than that we do well, like either remote or in person, as opposed then to trying to create a third option and then maybe deal with unnecessary issues with that. That's just my take on the third option. But as we decide between, well, we know we will offer some virtual, as we decide whether or not to open our buildings for in-person education, I do have some questions. Are our classrooms equipped with HVAC systems for proper ventilation? And do we have fail safes in place for if they break?
So I guess that would be a maintenance auxilio question. I know that they are testing the equipment, that they have been testing the HVAC equipment. And so when it comes to building operations, it's all the same. I mean, when we're in regular school, if you will, and something happens with an HVAC system, we call maintenance and they come and fix it. So when I'm not sure if that answers your question. There are certain requirements that have to be passed in order for school to start.
Right. I guess because there are so many unknowns about the novel virus, but we do know that it is airborne. For me, I would want to make sure that we aren't just passing a minimum standard, but that there is proper ventilation and that we do have a fail-safe plan if one goes out. If one goes out and, what is our plan? Do we have to evacuate students? I mean, what does that look like? Another question I have is, have we already in the front end secured PPE funding for all teachers, staff, and students? And
Yes.
Will mask wearing be enforced?
Yes and yes.
Okay. Have we already secured funding for additional cleaning supplies, or are we still working on getting that?
Yes, we have.
Okay. Have we hired any more teachers, or do we have like a larger pool of substitutes in order to, have the more space that we need to have the social distancing? Will we have smaller class sizes? Do we have enough staffing? Do we have extra staffing going into this?
We have right now we have 2 building subs in each classroom. As I mentioned before, in each building. As I mentioned before, when we talk about staffing, that is one of our concerns as we looked at our deficit spending plan. That you asked another question. You just asked, spacing. Yes, the spacing has. Yes. The plan is to have proper spacing.
So we will, if we reopen, we will have proper spacing. Does that equate to smaller class sizes?
Yes.
And if so, do we have extra staff to accommodate more classes?
So we do, and so the expectation is that we will have students who are taking online classes, again based on community response. We have roughly 50% of our students who are, and a lot of parents who we're talking to on a daily basis are requesting virtual learning. So
Okay.
so we're going to have to make set limits on the number of students who can come into the buildings.
Okay. And then my last question for you was, do we have do we have data from individual building administrators? Have they reached out specifically to their staff and their families so that we could look at each building class by class, what the numbers are of those who want to return to in person?
Well, we need to find, we will find that out as soon as we are able to deliver them, to let them know what their options are. So after tonight, we will know, how it matters. It matters at this point. So we need to know what it is that we're doing so that we can set up the class sizes and therefore the buildings as needed.
Right. So I guess our surveys that were sent out, we know approximately how many students want in-person versus remote. Do we have that further broken down by building or by class?
Not by building, but more by elementary, middle, high school. So, but not specifically by building. And that was intentional. We just needed an overall at the time. So now we dig deeper as we do actual planning.
Okay. Yeah. And the only thing I want to come back to is the whole HVAC. The HVAC. I just want to be sure that I'd like to hear from somebody that has been checked, that there is proper ventilation. I know that there are some schools that are finding they thought it was good and now they're finding it's not. So I just don't want to be premature and making any decisions based on assumptions or just maybe a standard that existed pre-pandemic that needs to be higher currently.
Thank you. Right. We were at RECC when they started blowing things through the HVAC system. So I know that we were in the middle of an interview and when things started blowing. And so I know that they're working on that.
Ms. Reyes, I'm sorry. There are some questions in the chat also.
Would you like for me to, can we go down? Would you like to go? Okay. Okay. A lot of congratulations, Ms. Gowan. Congratulations, Renee. Okay, keep going, keep going. Publicly announce it to committee so that we can acknowledge the efforts. Dr. Edmondson, do you mean each person, the Return to Learning Committee? I know he's on there.
Now, I'm eating. I'm over here eating. I'm like, for real?
We don't have to see you. We don't have to see you. Just you can speak.
Well, no, I was just, who are they by name? Because they matter. Everybody matters. You don't have to do it now, but at some point. Okay.
Yeah, I don't want to leave anybody out. So I hate to do that. But we will make sure. We'll run the credits when this is all said and done, so that we can acknowledge everyone. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Pelt. Okay, option B. How will this look for self-contained students if some parents choose in-person? Will teachers and parents have to go in person? Well, the teachers will have to. Okay, so I'm looking at the 631 question by Ms. Long for option B. How will this look for self-contained students? So we will have to make sure that we are serving the needs of self-contained students. It's not a situation that we can, it has to be determined by their caseload manager. And it has to be because different students have different needs. So that's not a one size fits all question. That has to be done on a student by student basis. If some parents choose in person, will teachers and parents, paras, have to go in person. So again, that it comes down to who's available, and we're talking about self-contained. If the self-contained teacher is teaching the other students who are virtual, then that teacher will be occupied. And so then the question becomes, does that student have a one-to-one pair? Do we need to set something up where we have a pair who can support several students? So this is a case-by-case basis. I can't say, we can't, it's not a one-size-fits-all. It has to be customized. Subs have been confirmed. Thank you. What about plans for spacing and shared areas, hallways, lunches? Well, lunches have to be, lunches will be in the classroom. It's been established that students will not be gathering. There can be no gatherings of multiple classes of students. So the lunches will have to be done in the classroom. With respect to hallways, the recommendation has been made and the planning is happening such that student, the whole, I don't know if you remember the stay to the right, when you were coming up in grade school, that everybody has to stay to the right. So there's going to have to be staggering, if you will, to some degree of students in hallways so that they're not on top of each other. I mean, that's what we have to do. Okay, mostly kept it right. Okay, well, you answered okay, thank you. I was told GSRP was the last being done. Yeah, that was an experience. If I'm looking at 6:43 p.m., what about the GSRP program? Would that be virtual as well? We would offer virtual. We know that for our 4-year-olds, a lot of their learning is social, and we know that a lot of what they do is manipulate as they learn. Small motor skill, large motor skills, small motor skills, etc. So we know that learning can be best for that age group if they're in person. However, the plan is to have virtual options as well. Will new students have the option of virtual? Yes, all students will have the option of virtual only. Efficiency, or we too find ourselves. Oh, ABC World News. Okay, we need to have Q&A or what ifs if absolutely, without taking science until we with the decision implemented with great confidence assurance. Yes, and yes. Thank you. And thank you, Ms. Long. Let me say this, we do have parents who and community members and board members who are presenting questions to us besides these. And so we're gathering all of those questions and answers in one place. So an FAQ and if you will, to answer questions as they come. Some of them we're finding are beginning to be repeated. So displaying, we're just waiting again. A question, I'm not sure. Hi, Nashan. I don't know where you are. If a parent chooses one option, decide to change their mind, is that an option? If they pick, so what we're deciding at this point if it's going to be at the quarter or if it's going to be at the semester. And at this point, it depends on which option is chosen. So if we're talking right now about options A or B, right now we're looking at reassessing at the quarter. Okay, so right now, welcome back, Nishan. We missed you. We're looking at changing at the quarter or reassessing at the quarter.
Ms. Crockett, this is Teresa Beard. The other part of his question was, but if a number of cases rises, will they be able to change to virtual if they picked in class?
Changing to virtual is much easier than the other way around, if that makes sense. It's much easier for a student to change to virtual than it is for us to make a spot for a student to come back into the building, especially if we're at capacity. So that is something that we can look at a little more easily, changing to virtual. But what we don't want is the back and forth, in and out. We need stability for our students. And so that's why we said the quarter, because the quarter is roughly, 4 weeks? About 4 weeks is a quarter. And so that gives people time to be comfortable and to, and to get settled into what it is that they're doing before we, because kids, it depends. It could be a Wednesday and they want to go this way, and a Friday and they want to go this way. So I understand that this is about number of cases rising. So, that's something that we would watch as well.
Just for clarification, Ms. Crockett.
Yes.
So for all online options, the teachers will be teaching from a remote site, or will they be in the classrooms if it's an online option?
They have the option. You said for virtual only is, so like for
So
A,
if we choose option A,
yes.
will the teachers be teaching remotely, or will they be teaching from their classroom,
That's
or?
up to them. That's up to them.
Okay.
Because it's remote. So some people want to, they like to be in the building, like they like the structure themselves of going to work. And they can do that, but the virtual is virtual.
So for clarity, then it's the teachers they have access to the buildings. It's
Yes.
the students that will not be in person.
Correct.
Ms.
Question.
Crockett, this is Ms. Kennard.
Yes.
Yes, Ms. Crockett, this is Ms. Kennard. And so for clarification, you will be assessing this by quarter, not
Yes.
semester. That's what I heard you say? Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
that is correct. That is correct.
This is Terrell. I do have a question. The first question is, it says youngest for option B, youngest students have first priority. What does that mean? What does that look like? Youngest student, is there a cap as to how many students would be allowed? And what is that cap?
Yeah, so the cap depends. So first of all, we have to know how many available staff we have. So that's the first question. How many available staff do we have? And then from there, what is the spacing for the space that staff can be in? And then from there, how many kindergartners do we have who need to take advantage of coming into school? And so if the answer to that is 10, and then the next question is how many first graders do we need to account for? And if the answer of that to that is 17, and that space can accommodate 27 students, and now we obviously with ages that small, we still have to have the same number. What's the word? The ratio. We still have to have proper ratios for those age groups. So it really depends on the amount of staffing that we have. We can't put 30 kids. We can't put 30 kindergartners with one adult. That goes against our numbers altogether. You understand what I'm saying? So we're starting from the bottom up because those are the students who are most vulnerable age-wise when it comes to not being left at home.
Then the last question I had is learning centers. Have we identified which of the buildings would be considered a learning center?
We have not yet. This is, again, this was established or presented as an option based on community voice. And so this is something that we are going to have. We have an idea, but it's something that's going to have to be vetted and established. And again, it depends on available staff.
Nicole, when will we know how many available staff we have and how many we don't have?
As soon as we is a quarter 10 weeks. Is a quarter 10 weeks, Mr. Niedermeyer? I need somebody at my brain. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm looking at the chat. Let me go back to the question. Sorry.
Yes.
When will we know? We keep talking about available staff.
Yes.
So in order for us to make an informed decision, we would need to know how many available staff we have. When will we know those numbers?
We won't. We have to do further investigation into those numbers. I think the question is this the option that you want? If it's not the option that you want, then that's research time that we don't have to put in place. So and at the end of the day, however many staff we have is all we have.
Right. But I would hate for us to make a plan and then find out that, we were leaning toward a plan, but didn't have the staff to actually make that happen.
If it's 10 kids, that's all we can do. If it's 30 kids, that's all we can do. So we're not making any promises. We're just saying we're going to go with the staff that we have and work our way up. But what we're not saying is that every single student or every single family that wants to come in is going to be able to bring their children in. The best we can do is say that we'll start with the kids who have the most need first, which would be our youngest students, as well as someone mentioned, our self-contained students. That's something else that we have to look at first.
So we do know that we need to be prepared for remote learning because a portion of our students will opt for that. And then if the governor takes us back, all of our students will be receiving remote learning.
Period.
So what happens for those who have chosen in the building, but there's an instant quarantine of an entire class? My concern is that the back and forth of that may cause a hardship on parents. We see that when we have a snow day that's unexpected.
Yes. Well, I mean, this is coronavirus. And so we are all in this is not a desirable situation. I think someone mentioned on Friday that we need to remind everyone that there is the possibility that all students would have to go back home. There's very little control that we have. I mean, we're doing the best that we can with what we have, but we have very little control over numbers. We have very little control over if the state goes to phase 3. And so parents are going to have to be advised all over the state that if something happens, your child will have to come home. And I mean, that's for all of us.
And will we be able to keep, if we have a grade where part of those students are 5th graders, part of them have opted for remote learning and the other in-person learning, there will, potentially probably be more disruptions to the in-person learning environment. So will we be able to keep those two cohorts on the same pace? Or will we need to allow for different emotional wellness checks that those students in person may be experiencing due to the disruptions of education, whether it's quarantine or it's anxiety in the classroom or whether it's, illness of a classmate or worse? Do we have things in place to handle those as they come up?
Well, part of our plan is having the, first of all, having wellness checks, is having, I hate to say mental health checks, but to some degree, social emotional assessments early on. And we have a team made up of counselors, the same team that we have during the continuity of learning plan, counselors, our mental health specialists, our teen health center, who are on call and who want to support our students and families. So we have those people in place. I'm not sure if I answered your question.
I did have one last question.
Yes.
Hopefully it's the last one.
Okay.
So let's just say tonight we choose an option.
Yeah.
I know that's reported to Wayne Risa, and then I believe that it goes to MDE. But do we as a board have an option to change? To say, you know what, we're not going to go with option Q, we're going to go with option S.
We have to resubmit it for approval, which is why we want to reassess ahead of time. We don't want to wait until the week before it needs to start to do something different. We would need to resubmit. Thank you, Mr. Niedermeyer, for reminding me. What happens when a teacher who is teaching on site has his child's classroom? I don't get the question. What happens when a teacher?
So I'll jump in.
Thank you.
We have our staff teaching here.
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to use me as an example. Then my son's class, who's in another district, quarantine. Now they have to be home.
Mm-hmm.
And what does that do to me as a working dad? Now I have to be home. My kid is quarantined. I don't have anybody to watch. So you're going to get me a sub? Because my own child, has been quarantined. I'm working for the district, our district, but my child who goes to school in another district's class just got quarantined. What do we do?
it's the same thing as when it's the same thing as when any teacher's child's health or family's health is compromised. The same, whether it's sick days, whether it's FMLA, whatever it is that any working person has to do to support their children, it would be the same thing. And so, yes, that's why we have.
I understand. Okay. I'm just saying, are we prepared to find a substitute who's going to have to be there for 2 weeks when we may not have? I don't know if we have enough subs. I'm just saying that's a possibility that you have 3 or 4 teachers whose kids get quarantined in another district, and now we're down 3.
I understand. So,
like I told you before, like it's not directed to you.
I know
the things that I'm thinking about, like, oh
yes.
my, what would
yes, this is coronavirus. These are coronavirus issues. We do have 2 substitutes that have been confirmed in every building. I have been asking, if we can and if we should have more substitutes in every building. But then again, the question is how many is enough? If we get 3, like you just said, if we get 3 and we need 4, is that enough? I mean, what we have happened, in the cases that we're in now is, teachers have had to cover for other teachers. I mean, that's been going on since forever, and so, we have found ways to make work what we need to make work. This is just a more difficult time with the planning and everything that has to happen. And this is the thing, whether we start now, whether we start later, whether we start in January, whether we start in March, the questions are going to be the same.
Nicole, will we still use EduStaff for subs, or will we develop our own substitute pool? My concern is we call EduStaff and we could get a substitute who's comes on Friday and it's the 5th district, the 5th group of kids, and who's going to do that contact tracing if that substitute tests positive. There's a lot of that, and even I see where in the chat where we're talking about subs, the teachers can't as easily cover for each other this year, because before, if a teacher was out, we could take a classroom, divide it up in 3 or 4 groups, and send each of those groups to another teacher's classroom. But now we're not able to do that. We're not able to take students from one class and move them into another classroom. So that limits our ability for teachers to cover for each other this year coming up.
Okay.
I have a question. This is Ms. Smart. So in the virtual learning, what is the class load limitation? Let me ask that question first. I mean, is there an amount of students in the virtual learning that we have set, or is it based on the traditional classroom of students?
So that's a question that has to be determined between the district and REA. I know that with RVLC, there have been up to 50 students who are managed by a teacher. But again, that is that's something that we're going to have to work on together to establish to get those answers.
Yeah, because I'm thinking, in a virtual setting, the classroom is non-traditional in terms of how we know, quote unquote, and the learning ability and the things that's being presented is being done differently, where you could possibly, and I'm not going against any contract language or whatever, but I'm just thinking as I heard that question a few minutes ago pertaining to, teachers, if they're not available, we're looking at it in a traditional setting where teachers could, perhaps support another one indirectly. So I'm just saying that even looking at it and beyond all of this is that, that affects the contract, as well. So I'm like, that's something also that has to be looked into. I don't know, we can't change contracts, whatever, but as we move into virtual learning, it changes a lot of things and it impacts the contract.
Right.
Okay. And so, at some point legal, we would have to, as a board member, I would probably wanting to know how does that affect what we're doing at the decision that we're making?
Right. And again, that's a conversation that we'll have to have, that we can, it's an ongoing conversation with the teachers union to make sure that everything is equitable for the teachers. Someone asked, okay, how far up can I go? Okay, let me go back to the questions. Okay, we already answered those. Your child is quarantined, aren't by default quarantined as well. Perhaps I need to look at that closely. I know that there are different, and sometimes we don't know when we say quarantine. In order to actually state a quarantine or come out of a quarantine, there has to be a negative test. So it depends on how long that takes, if someone is actually proven infected or not. For virtual classes, if the teacher is ill, will classes be taught by a virtual substitute or is class canceled for that day? Again, teacher, that was the conversation we were just having about, well, will there be a substitute or will teachers take on additional course load in order to support students? And so that's, again, that is a kind of a case-by-case conversation, but definitely something that will have to be worked through with REA. But at the end of the day, the plan is to never leave a child hanging. So we're going to find a way, whatever that looks like, to make sure that our kids are covered. Hasn't surveyed this. Yes, we did the survey already. If we have staff who need to stay home because their own children. So Ms. Piles addressed that on Friday. If we have staff who need to stay home because their own children are remote learning, which is understandable. At the same time, we have to teach our kids, which is what we're here for. We have to make sure that our kids are covered. If they're medically compromised, teachers who are medically compromised will have to make sure that they, that they check in with HR. There are guidelines for that. Some teachers are choosing to retire early, and the COVID is a mess. Let me see. We know staff plans to what staff plans to be. We have received over, I think we're up to 170 staff who have responded to our survey. So we do have that information. Good.
That's correct.
Yes.
If I may, it appears, at least to me, that most of the questions have been addressed.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to go ahead first. As previously stated, as a parent, I'm a proponent of choice, but I have had the opportunity to review all of the input from the community as well as from our teachers, and based upon that, I don't want us to fail. Our first and foremost is our children's safety. I don't want us to fail. I want us to roll out our plan efficiently. And at this time, I'm not sure that we're ready to open our buildings up to our children. Eventually, I want a plan which would include an option for parents. But at this time, I'm not opposed to for the first quarter. Going online or virtual only, and it'll give us the opportunity for us to get acclimated. I mean, we're in the middle of a transition as far as superintendent. We have a number of structural gaps which need to be filled, and I just think this is this whole environment is all too new, and I would rather do it right than do it quickly. So again, I'm a proponent for choice. But I understand the need to roll out something more permanent slowly, and for that reason, I have no issue with option A, at least at this point.
Right. I would like to add that whatever we do, we need to serve our community. And I know that we have so many working parents that that need our schools for both childcare and instruction. And so if we go virtual only for safety reasons, to the best of our ability, I would like us to still reach out to families and see what we can do to bridge bridge our students and families to wraparound services and networks, and encourage our community to surround our children with us during this time. As we look at what other districts are doing, and I've been following them, but again, I have said we can watch what other districts are doing, but we have to design a plan that is specific for our community. And we look at the death rate of COVID, and there's worldwide and in the US is 3%. And that means 97% of people don't die, and that's wonderful. But 3% do. And in Michigan, 6% of those diagnosed with COVID die. In Wayne County, that goes up to 10%. And I know that we cannot prevent everything, but we can be prudent in our decision making. And I just personally don't feel that I cannot personally cast a vote to reopen buildings when I still have unanswered questions about safety. And if we lose a life, either a student or a teacher, there's no redo. There's no coulda, woulda, shoulda. And I'm not saying that, you know, in-person instruction isn't important. It is. And I'm not saying that I am insensitive to the needs that our students have that are met in the buildings. I'm just saying we have to look at that a different way and still meet those. But if our buildings are safe havens and we remove safety, we can add layers of trauma onto our students. And until we at least get answers about our HVAC system, we have a better idea of what our transportation looks like, until we know how many teachers will we have. Whatever we do, we have to do well. We have to do remote learning well. And until we can answer these safety questions, I'm one of 7 who will cast a vote, but I cannot in good conscience do it risking anyone's life.
So, Mr. Martell, President Martell, so were you making the motion for option A?
Make the motion. I just want to reiterate that again. My ultimate preference is a parent, and as a member of the board, is to, and as a working parent too. I know it's going to be difficult for parents that work and the arrangements that have to be made, and also I know how difficult it is, especially for K-5 to learn online. I mean, it's not going to be the same. Let's be realistic. I just feel like we have so many gaps right now. I don't want to fail, and I can, I'm just anticipating all the potential issues that may arise if we go into this not prepared.
Correct.
I think, I don't know, option B would be a good middle ground, reasonable resolution. I just don't know what that would look like. I don't know if you guys want to have further discussion. If you want to have further discussion prior to moving forward with any motion.
Mr. President.
Yes, ma'am.
This is Funderburg. So, and I'm kind of torn between option B and option C. In option A, I kind of think about when the peak of this virus actually started. And so if we're saying that we're starting online, but then there may be an option to open up, technically speaking, I think a lot of the cases start arising around February and March. And so that really, to me, will put us online for the whole school year. So if we start off in school, usually the flu, cold virus, the coronavirus usually is around November when it really starts kind of picking up. And so I'm just concerned that that could be possibly another year that our students will not be, their learning will be compromised. I won't say that they're not getting anything, but what I will say is that unfortunately, it's not equitable. And I say that because you may have parents who may not feel comfortable in helping to supervise their child, or maybe they can't or have had negative educational experiences themselves, and so they don't feel qualified to be able to supervise. Or maybe you have families who are, on the front lines and are essential workers, and so they're going to need assistance childcare in that regard. And so we've got a community that probably has like a lot of different types of scenarios when it comes to their educational experiences. And so I kind of feel like with the option C, if they don't feel comfortable in sending their child, they can still have a learning experience from the safety of their home. And yes, there are a lot of scenarios around, well, what if a teacher is exposed, or what if a student in a classroom is exposed? Are we sending the whole classroom? But I think we have some flexibility within that option C, that if those things occur, that there can still be a virtual educational experience. And that's the one reason why we were choosing the Edgenuity and kind of using that as the consistency piece across the board for pre-K through 12. So that if there were some variations in where they had to spend their time, whether it was in the classroom or at home, whether they were exposed or not exposed, that piece be the consistent foundational piece that we could use to make sure that all of our kids were getting what they need, and getting it at, that it was paced the same, and that they were getting it at the same time. And so, and I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, Mrs. Crockett, but so let's just say if a teacher was exposed, maybe through their, like the example Dr. Edmondson used, if they were exposed from their child from another district, then wouldn't they be able to then take that piece virtually and still be able to administer it from their home to their students? And so if we had actual students within that particular classroom, then I guess my question would be, do those children just then not report to school that day? Because, well, technically, if they've been exposed, then they wouldn't report, but they'd still be able to be instructed by that particular teacher.
Right. As long as the teacher is not ill, the
Right.
answer is yes. And so those students, and those students have other classes. So it depends on what level, or it depends on whether we're talking about, elementary or secondary. So at the secondary level, those students have other. So if a parent goes home, if a teacher who is a parent has to leave, and a substitute is in that classroom, in that one particular classroom, and that teacher is not ill, they just have to self-quarantine, then that teacher can continue with their responsibilities.
Right. So I think for me, it's definitely the flexibility is something I wonder about. That's our new word from our search, that I wonder about for our staff. If for any reason there may be an instance where they are exposed, or if their health is compromised. And so do they have that flexibility to be able to do a virtual setting? And so for me, I like I said, I'm kind of teetering between option B and option C, but I kind of feel like the option C, it gives individuals a choice. And if if they're concerned within that, and I guess for me, I'm looking at is it a choice without penalty? So, you know, I guess for me is what I'm thinking, especially when it comes to staff, that they not be penalized because they decide to stay home and do a virtual piece. And so for me, it's more of staff and student flexibility. I kind of liked the quarter one piece that you spoke about, but again, if a parent decided that today I want to do it, but I've heard some news that just really has me concerned, and so can I pull little Jimmy and keep them at home for the remainder of the quarter or the semester? So those, I'm just concerned about flexibility. Thank you.
I have a question. Is there a reason why we're continuing to hold our board meetings remotely and all of our candidate interviews are remote? Are we prohibited from meeting in person? Because whatever we decide, we need to, if we're going to reopen our buildings, we need to be in our buildings. We need to be in our buildings with meetings. We need to be in our buildings for interviews. It just seems hypocritical for us to make these decisions for other people remotely.
Agreed.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that too, Ms. Piles, is the stipulations on what things, because everything is not the same when it talks about the different restrictions. And so I know do you fall under the gathering scenario where you can only have 10 people, or, you know, and so I think that's probably why, I don't know. I just, and for me, in person is fine with me as long as people are wearing their PPE, but I'm just one person. I can't speak for everyone. And so,
So what is the rule on PPE in buildings, Mrs. Crockett? Is it only certain grades that need to wear it? Do special ed students, are they exempt from wearing it? What is the rule? I don't know what that is right now.
All students must wear it unless they are medically unable to do so, and staff. Besides K through 5 in the classrooms, they do not have to wear PPE. They do not have to wear facial coverings, as well as pre-K in the classrooms. But if they go out into common spaces, that's when they have to wear them. In hallways, etc.
Have we considered, if we go in person, possibly putting an aide in the kindergarten room so that we don't have one teacher trying to handle kindergarten students who've never been away from home and teach them all don't touch, no, don't pick your desk mate's nose, all of that, in addition to all of the social distancing. If we go in person, has there been any discussion about adding aides to lower elementary, specifically kindergarten?
There have not. So that would go along. Again, that's a staffing issue, and how much money we have to pay additional staff in every building.
Right. I guess I'm bringing it up as a security safety issue as well. So that would be something to consider also, and maybe we'll come back to class size, because knowing that, especially in kindergarten, everybody's sharing everything and touching each other, and now we have to be extra diligent in preventing that. Can one person reasonably be able to handle that in a kindergarten classroom safely?
Are we required to have some sort of nurse, at least for the district? Do we have a nurse? Is there a certain number required for each school, or who's going to handle? See, these are my issues and concerns. I'm always a proponent of choice. I just don't want to see us fail. And because if we don't have all the, it's not gonna play out well. And ultimately, you know, I know we can, you know, successfully implement something more, it give the parents more, our parents and our teachers more flexibility, but think of, if we do it, you know, quickly, I think it's not gonna have a good result. And that's my only concern. That's my main concern.
So again, all of the safety and precautions that are required and that we have in our plan will be followed. You know, when you talk about kids sharing things, we have to teach them what we teach them when they come in any setting. And so, you know, that teaching and that training is a part of learning. So, you know, if kids come in and they're okay, and we're teaching them how to, you know, not touch each other as we usually do. That's what our teachers are experts at when it comes to, again, having the required elements, the PPE and the spacing and all of that. Those are things that we must do. So, you know, but at the end of the day, we are providing choices, and we're providing options because we understand that there are so many unknowns. This is not a Romulus Community Schools issue. This is a Wayne County and a state of Michigan issue, and every district is grappling with these. Everybody who's having their board meeting tonight is asking the same questions.
Ms. Crockett, this is Teresa Beard.
Yeah.
They're bringing up, people are talking, when we talk about virtual and face-to-face, if we do option C with the in-person, these are not full class, or what we have known formally as a regular classroom of 30 to 35 students, or, you know, the 25 to 30 students in a kindergarten class. We will never see those numbers under this scenario with the COVID.
Correct.
Because we have to do the social distancing.
Correct.
So under Plan C, those students would only be coming to school half the time during the week. Is that correct?
If they choose the hybrid, the answer is yes. So if students choose 5 days a week, they are coming to school 5 days a week, social distancing, wearing masks. For that, if parents are choosing, you know, again, less exposure, and they say my student is going to be off on Monday and Wednesday, and we schedule that into their into their 5-day schedule, then those students are coming 3 days a week. But the lesson plans are still continuing every day. I'm not sure if I don't feel like I answered your question. You're looking like,
So just for clarity's purposes, is there a strict virtual option under option C?
Yes, there's a virtual only. So the reason,
okay.
Yes, there's
virtual, and that's what I think that yeah. Okay, could you explain that, please?
Yeah, we have many families. Again, when you saw that pie chart, we have many families and who we talk to on a daily basis who say, I am absolutely not sending my child to school. My child will do online learning on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And we are accommodating that. Romulus Virtual Academy is for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, online only. I'm starting from the bottom. Temperature checks at school and hand sanitizing areas. Hand sanitizing areas will be every classroom and every entry. There's I want to say a 3-hour time period the longest that students can go without sanitizing is 3 hours. So that means every time they change a class, then every time they enter into a classroom, they have to sanitize their hands. The desks have to be cleaned between classes every single day, every single passing.
Who's doing that cleaning?
The teachers are going to have to do it. And so that's part of the LOU or the MOU that we're going to have with the union.
And what are they? Do we know like what they're sanitizing with, and what the time frame is when you wipe an area down? How much time it has to sit before it's considered sanitized?
Yes.
When you just have time, could you get us that, please? Because that's another question I've been asked, and I don't know the answer to that.
Which question?
About, as far as people have asked, well, if surfaces have to be wiped down, who's doing the wiping down? And then asking, well, what's the product being used and what is the time frame? Because you can't just wipe it down and then it's sanitized. There's a time frame that it has to sit before it's considered sanitary. It's not instant.
I don't know that that's, I don't know that that's true. I mean, so you're asking, for example, it won't be bleach. How long does it take for Clorox, for example,
and depending on what product is used, there is a time frame between wiping it down and when it's considered. It could be minutes, it could be 10 minutes, it could be, I don't know, it depends on the product. So whatever we're using and whatever that time frame is, it would be good to know.
Please, can you email that to me so I can get that?
I will. Yes.
Thank you. Temperature checks. The temperature checks is the third question that Mr. Hansen had. And again, it is not recommended by the CDC nor the health department. But it seems to be a concern. So we're going to have to, I mean, it's not anything that we're required to do. But it's something that we can look into. Ms. Piles, if you can add that to the list, depending on what we have available. But again, it's not anything that is being done or being even recommended by the health department for children.
Ms. Crockett, this is Mrs. Beard. On a secondary level for like the high school, they are not going to be changing classes every hour, the ones that are coming in person. Are we going to be trying to schedule where the students stay in place so that there's not as much movement? Or are we going with a different scenario?
The plan is for them to do more of a block schedule so that they have fewer passings and they're in classes longer. That was the last plan that I got from the high school. Mr. President.
Thank you. There are no further questions. Based on all of the feedback, I'm going to go ahead and make a motion for option A for 10, for the first quarter only. And my hope is that we can offer more options moving forward for our community. Because I really know that it's best for kids to be in the classroom to learn. But at this point, in the interest of safety, too many uncertainties, I'm going to make a motion for option A only, for the first quarter only, to be revisited prior to by
support.
Okay, Ursula.
Support.
Motion's on the floor. Martell, supported by
Wester.
If there's no further discussion, we can have a roll call.
Piles.
Yes.
Thunderbird.
No.
Terrell.
Yes.
Beard.
I am really torn. I'm going to say no because I would like to give choice, virtual and the in-person.
Kennard.
Yes.
Wester, yes. Martell.
Yes. Motion carries. I know this is a very contentious and very important issue for all parties involved. And again, my hope is after our first quarter, we will move to something that provides more choice for our parents and children. Um, but motion carries, and we are going to open up with option A for the first quarter.
Thank you. Thank you for letting, we can move forward with that and begin to support our families. So thank you for giving us a decision that we can move forward with.
At this point in time, I'm going to turn the floor over to Ms. Angela Rudolph, Director of Business and Operations.
Mr. Martell,
Yes, ma'am.
Can I ask just one quick question?
Please.
Will the COVID-19 plan that the board received, that, the one that's going to be submitted, has that been posted on our website for community to see?
Say that again, Miss. I'm sorry.
The COVID-19 plan that we saw, that it had all of the, the requirements for face masks, the sanitizing, all of those instructions or things that we filled in on that plan. The one I know it's prior to approval, but has that plan been put online for everybody to see?
No, that goes on. That has to be online by the 17th. So now we get it. Once it's been approved here, then we put it there.
Okay, because I think that'll answer a lot of the questions as far as like the sanitizing stations, who's cleaning, the face washing, because all that is in that plan.
Well, honestly, the Q&A or the FAQs tend to answer that easier because people can just go straight to their questions and the types of questions that they have.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, Mr. Martell.
No problem at all. I did want to reiterate, I need to communicate as soon as possible to our parents so they can make necessary arrangements, etc., and let them know that we'll be keeping an eye on this issue intently. So at this point in time, please.
I see that there's a couple notations or remarks concerning the Head Start program, and that's a different program. Can somebody please address that?
Head Start is different from GSRP. So they have different requirements and they have their own standards. One thing I guess I do want to ask, and I apologize for not making this clear. We mentioned potentially doing GSRP differently. So I hate to upset the apple cart, but do we want to pull pre-K GSRP out of this virtual only option and open it, or do we want to do this across the board?
The pre-K GSRP, that falls under the umbrella of a daycare, doesn't it? So we can operate that? No.
It does not.
Can we get some numbers on that and revisit it? Can we get numbers at our families, what they're looking for, and also the staff in that building?
We can. I think that's fair. Yes.
Please. Thank you. At this point, we're going to turn the floor over to Ms. Rudolph, Director of Business and Operations. She has a couple FYIs. Ms. Rudolph, are you with us?
Yes.
The floor is yours.
The first FYI in your packet is the annual audit engagement letter from Raymond, our current auditor. The second FYI is there was a finance committee meeting on August the 6th, and we just wanted to make sure that the information is being disseminated down to the entire board. So there are a couple of items from this meeting that we will be covering on the 24th. And the meeting directly following the 24th. There is a revenue consensus hearing on August 24th. And so we are hoping to get additional information about the status of our budget and what the cuts will actually be for 2021. And so after the 24th, I'll be bringing that to the board. On the 24th, I will get you information this week, regarding the proposed board member compensation cuts and what that will look like. So you will be able to study that in advance of the meeting. We reviewed CARES Act funding and what the district is doing with that CARES Act funding, as well as the information that the state has given us thus far on what our budget looks like. They are telling us that this year there's a $175 per pupil cut, and there's additional CARES Act money coming, but they have not said how that is coming, where it's coming from, what it will look like. And it is August. Their fiscal year is over September 30th, but they have not disseminated that information. For 2021, they are looking across the state at a $3 billion hole. They were hoping to get more money from the federal government. That has not happened yet, and they have not given us additional information on what that looks like. So hopefully on the revenue consensus hearing on the 24th, they will give more information, and I will bring that to you. In terms of bid updates, I will talk about food service. I saw one of the questions out there having to do with food and food service and bus drivers. If we are not doing in-person learning, we will be serving food. We will more than likely bus that food out, depending on our numbers, to what our normal stops will be. The food service bid is out. We have had some interest in our district. We will be coming, I'll be coming back to you with a request for a special board meeting so that you can vote on that bid to have the food service management company start on or around August 31st. I will be doing a robocall out to all food service staff to update them as to where we are, to assure them that they all have jobs and that they will be contacted by the new food service management company. So that concludes my updates.
Thank you, Ms. Rudolph. What is the timeline for, you said you're going to be bringing that before the board. What date can we expect that, or approximate, and please?
I will be asking for, I guess I am asking for a special board meeting on August the 28th.
Thank you. Will you be addressing the security bid or human resources today?
I will not.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Rudolph, for your report.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any questions for Ms. Rudolph before she concludes? Thank you, Ms. Rudolph. Next, we will turn the floor over to our Director of Human Resources regarding the security bid update. Ms. Bond, are you with us?
Yes, I am.
The floor is yours.
Good evening. Yes, we had a committee get together regarding the security companies that had submitted proposals, and at this time would like to make a recommendation to go with Securitas as the new provider of security services for Romulus School District. There were several areas that we looked at with respect to concerns that we had had with the previous company, and I believe that we as a team did a very thorough job in investigating all of the areas in which we felt were important to the Romulus School District to move forward with a 3-year plan for a new security company. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have regarding questions that we covered with the security bid.
Mr. President, did you, may I please?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you say is it a 3-year contract?
Yes, it is.
And is that standard, 3 years?
That, I believe that's what was in the RFP, was for a 3-year contract, yes.
Mr. President,
Yes, ma'am.
Since we just voted to go 100% virtual for the first quarter, is it possible that we could get this information and review it and cost and maybe table this until we meet to vote on Dr. Edmondson's contract and maybe make a more informed decision, get advice and his advice and recommendations, and so that we are allocating our funds most effectively?
Yes, I think that'd be a good idea as well. Is there any additional board input? I don't see this as an action item today either.
It's not. It was just an FYI.
Okay, okay. So yeah, I mean, there's not going to be a vote on this. I guess this is Ms. Vaughn's recommendation. But if there's any, yeah, I mean, I would probably prefer to table it as well. You know, I voiced my preference to have any substantive decisions kind of put to the wayside until we have this transition in leadership.
Mr. President?
Yes, ma'am.
So as we're kind of collecting information, one of the, okay, so this is my personal preference, but I think when we hired Teach Out, this was important to us. And I know that we're on virtual only right now, but one of the things that we brought up as a point of concern is that what we didn't want was for our security staff to look like police officers, you know, kind of walking through and monitoring our students. And so I think that that's important, especially now in our social climate with police brutality and that kind of thing. And so that would definitely be one of the things that, you know, when we're moving towards contractual language and that kind of thing, is that that they are blending in with staff uniform type. Well, and I'll say even with the Teach Out, they had polos and maybe like jeans or khakis, because what we don't want to do is condition our students that, you know, they're there for their safety, of course, but I don't know, it just, to me, it just sends a bad message when they're walking around in their blues with their, you know, batons and that kind of thing. That would be a pet peeve for me, because again, we want them to be more or less role models and mentor type individuals rather than, you know, this is the police. And, you know, I just think that that's really important as we kind of are moving forward. And so that's one of the questions that I would have is, you know, how are they going to be uniformed? How are they walking through the hallways? You know, when you change companies like that, you know, because a lot of the individuals that we have that are working for Teach Out some of them are former students or community members, and you know, I think it's good to have that familiar face, you know, walking up and down the halls and building certain rapports with our students and not have this mentality of them being policed. Absolutely. And so I hope as we're moving forward and discussing this, that those are things that we keep in the forefront.
Thank you. Mr. President, if Dr. Edmondson is with us and willing to weigh in on this, could we ask him if he would do that, please? And Ms. Funderburg, I think that that's an excellent point. And a lot of districts have been very intentional and deliberate in the message they send to students with law enforcement and with punitive consequences for behavior and shifting away from that. And that's an excellent point. And I encourage us to consider that also.
Just so the board is aware, we did make sure that the new security company was willing to take on any of those current officers that wanted to apply with the new company so that they could kind of transition into the new company. Of course, they would have to meet their hiring requirements and whatnot, but that was part of the process.
Thank you. But
Thank you.
did you get an opportunity? I'm sorry, Mr. President.
please.
Ms. Bond, did that even, the uniform piece even come up as a conversation point, or are you not that far into?
They have a lot of companies that have casual clothing kind of requests and uniform clothing requests depending on the site. Some are schools and they have a uniform, and some schools request more casual. So it really depends on what we choose to go with.
Thank you, Ms. Bond.
Thank you.
And just very briefly, if since it's not an action item, we will table this unless there's any objections until after the 17th, when we will meet again to discuss the superintendent contract. Or that for right now, that's a tentative date. Is there any objections to tabling this?
No, not at this time.
Okay. With that being stated, we're going to move forward to the report of the board president, and very briefly update on superintendent contract. We did meet with legal. Contract negotiations are ensuing and moving forward as planned, and hopefully we will be having a closed session later on this week, and tentatively bringing it before the board Monday, as I understand. Other than that, we're going to move forward with communications from the public. These are general communications, not limited to agenda items. Our policies and procedures still apply as far as no personal attacks, limit to 3 minutes, and the floor is open at this time. If you wish to address the board at this time, please unmute yourself, introduce yourself, and the floor is open. And we will leave the floor open for some time, especially since we have such substantive issues up this evening. I want to make sure everybody has an opportunity to speak if they choose.
I'm sorry. Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Sorry, I was trying to unmute myself. This is Ursula Woodruff Harris. I just had a quick question. It's more about, I guess, high school. And I've mentioned this, I think, a couple of times too. I'm not sure if it's to Ms. Crockett, but someone like a counselor. My daughter is really interested in taking an AP Psych class that is not offered at Romulus. Will they be able to still do those types of classes in the fall?
Mr. Cooper had the answer to that question.
So when would that happen? Because she's a senior, so she wanted to do it while she's a senior. Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. Thank you.
Excuse me. Thank you, Ms. Woodruff. If there's any additional from the public right now, the floor is open.
Okay, I'm back. I had one more question because I came in kind of late on this on the meeting. But did you guys address, I think you may have, so if you have parents that are not comfortable teaching or sitting with their kids while they are during this the online core classes that you are suggesting for the first quarter. What type of support are they going to have? Because I do know some parents that are just not that patient and also are not that educated to help their kids. So how are those kids going to be helped?
So what we're going to have to do, and what we were going to do anyway, just as a part of our plan, is to provide our parents with tips, strategies, support. I mean, at this point, they will be home with their students, or their student will be someplace remotely. And so having the parent understand what the student's schedule is very important, so that they know when the student is supposed to be doing something and should be engaging. And so we are going to provide those tips, tricks, supports, strategies for our parents as they are navigating through this virtual learning. And it is important that we provide that, because again, this is not like it was in the spring. This is not a situation where it's, mostly enrichment. This is for credit. This is for grades, and this is for learning. We must continue on.
Yeah, because there's many parents that have kids that have 3 and 4 kids that they're going to have to work with educational wise. I know myself, I have a senior and I have a 9-year-old. And the 9-year-old I know does not do well online. So I already know that's going to be a problem for me. But my senior, she can handle this herself. Plus I work from home. So I was kind of thinking about, I want them to do the hybrid, or no, I want them to just do online. And I'm just hoping that he catches on and doesn't need me to be by the computer with him 100% of the time while he is, watching the teacher, teach online. I just was wondering about other parents that would that have those issues.
Yeah, it's a similar concern for a lot of parents. Absolutely.
Thank you again, Ms. Woodruff. Is there any additional from the public before we close? The floor is open. Okay, if not, I'd like to acknowledge Dr. Benjamin Edmondson, who is with us today, and allow him to say some brief words before we turn it over to the board members.
Well, thank you, President. This is that was really impromptu, so I don't have anything written down. But I just want to thank everybody for the tremendous work that we've seen through the committee, through the dedicated teachers. I mean, I've actually heard from a few teachers already, and I've seen many of them participating in an interview process. The passion is really clear. I mean, it's really clear. It's been on display. I always say, when you're not part of a community, you can sit back and watch, and what's important to them. I watched the Board of Education wrestle with this. It's a tough one. It's a tough decision, but this is about well-being of students and staff and families. But also, I understand that we may have a community that's not able to afford some of the opportunities that more suburban communities are able to, like for instance, childcare. So I love how our board wrestled with that. It's just really hard, and it's really difficult. It's really a difficult decision. But I stand behind the well-being of our staff and students and families and say that this will be temporary. Teachers are ready, and they will be ready. If they're not ready, they will be ready. The staff will be ready. We don't have every answer, but we're going to try to answer everything and do everything professionally. We can promise parents that. I promise you that I will be very accessible. One thing that I definitely am is transparent. You will always get the truth from me, because that's just who I am. That's how I'm raised. And sometimes the truth hurts, but that's what we're going to get. I just want to thank again everybody for the tremendous passion. Again, when you're not part of it, you can see it easily. So tremendous passion. We're going to do what's right for the community. We're going to do what's right for families and our staff. And I can't wait to get started. I've been very pleased by the board so far. I just really am. I've had an experience elsewhere, so I have something to compare it to. So I just want to thank you for your support, and I promise the community that I will give you my best, my all, and we're gonna do this. We're gonna do this thing. We're gonna have a good year in spite of COVID. We'll have a great year, and I will take, once I get an email address, I will certainly take any comments. Please speak on what you feel are issues in the district, any things that you have concerns about, but also share the good things that are going on. It's nice to hear some of the good things as we're trying to be even better. So I don't want to hold anybody else up for the day. Have a great day. Thank you so much. And thank you for inviting me into the community as the next leader.
Thank you, Doctor, for joining us today.
Oh, thank you.
At this point in time, I'm going to turn it over to the board members. If there's any board members that would like to address the public prior to signing off, the floor is now open.
Mr. President.
Yes, Ms. Piles.
Ms. Woodruff, thank you very much for attending our meeting and for sharing your concerns with us. We will find out what AP courses we are going to be offering because, yeah, the school year will be starting. But also, in our vote to go virtual, that is not a vote to compromise education. And now that we've made a commitment to going virtually, we will be working to develop systems of support so that our students don't fall through the cracks. We don't know what that looks like yet, but this is a really great opportunity for us to do things differently. We know that traditional conventional education wasn't working in so many areas. And now we have a tremendous opportunity because of the pandemic to look at our student needs and do things differently to better meet them. So I want to be clear that our decision to go virtual to open the year was not in any way a decision to forget about our students or not offer supports. And I would encourage this board and all of our leaders to be thinking outside of the box and reaching out and developing partnerships and networks so that we can provide these wraparound services for our families, have information compiled so that our families can reach out and access what they need for themselves and for our students. Dr. Edmondson, welcome again. I love that you speak so often of community wellness. And I, for one, am excited and looking forward to holding you to that and seeing the great things that come because of your dedication to community wellness. To the board members, this has been an unanticipated and unexpected year, but we have come together as a board more so this year, I think, than even last year. And we haven't had easy decisions to make, but we have come together, working together for what is best for our students, our staff, our families, and our community. And I am excited to go forward and continue working together for that objective.
Mr. Martell, this is Mrs. Beard.
Yes, Ms. Beard.
I would just like to say that tonight was a very difficult decision for all of us. And my vote wasn't in disagreement with anybody. It was a very big struggle to make the decisions we made tonight. I just was, my thought process was just to try to give choice to our parents and for the ones that struggle. And, but I think whatever decision we make, we just need to do it well and to move forward. And hopefully as we do that, we'll do it under some leadership. And I'd like to welcome Dr. Edmondson on board. And I do look forward to having a leader to guide us through everything. And I want to thank Mrs. Crockett for everything she has done to bring us to where we're at right now. And we appreciate all the time and sacrifices that you've made for the district.
And we are not working in central office.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Beard. Is there any additional from the board?
Yes, Mr. President.
Yes, ma'am.
Again, I ditto to what's been said thus far. I'd like to welcome Dr. Edmondson to the district. And also, Census 2020, don't forget it is coming up. So if you haven't already taken the census, take the census.
Thank you, Ms. Terrell. Is there any additional from the board?
Mr. Martell, if I may add something, in our decision, I know we could not make everybody happy, but one thing to consider is as districts have decided to go 100% virtual, and I know we wanted to give choice to our families, but also as districts have gone 100% virtual, families are leaving those districts and intentionally seeking out districts that are open that might seem good on the surface. It increases enrollment, but it also increases risk and exposure. And so although we want to focus on the recruiting plan going forward, for right now, this decision has enabled us to protect our borders, protect our district, and not bring extra risk, exposure, illness into it. And it gives us time to just do it well.
Well, on that note, I feel like I have to add, just because that's the potential risk that people are going to hop and go to other places for I don't want to say, I guess directly, it's some part of it is childcare. Some of it is about not being able to afford some things. But I say when you're the best in town, people stay with you. And that should be the thing that we want to do in our community is be, as I've said to friends, I haven't said it to the board yet, we want to be the destination for families in Western Wayne County. They should want to come here. So if we do this thing right, and then we're doing everything else right, people come back. People invest and people come back to your district. I don't have any worries about that. My worry right now is just about making certain that everybody is safe. Once that's over, then we work on this plan and people will come back, or people will reinvest, or people will continue to be vested. I'm gonna sleep well at night, and just tell you that. And so should we. Let's do it. Do it. Be professionals. Follow a plan. We got it. We.
Thank you, Dr. Edmondson.
Mr. Martell, this is Mrs.
Yes, Ms.
Funderburg,
Funderburg.
and this is totally off topic, but I just wanted to let Mrs. Crockett know that manipulability is a word.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rusty. That's hilarious.
Is there any additional from the board before we close? Okay, if not, we're gonna close, but I just want to let the community know that we heard all sides of this issue. We appreciate your input. Some of the more recent meetings have, had so many participants, and I'm just thankful for that. We just want to make our district the best and the safest that it can be, and I believe that we're at a turning point, a rebuilding point, and I'm very hopeful. So with that, I'm going to make a motion to adjourn.
Support.
We have a roll call, please.
Piles.
Yes.
Funderburg.
Yes.
Beard.
Yes.
Terrell.
Yes.
Kennard.
Yes.
Wester, yes. Martell.
Yes.
8:08.
Meeting is adjourned. Everybody have a safe night. God bless.
Good night.